And welcome back to the Twigger Time podcast. My name is David Twigger, and we're here to talk about everything special events and obviously everything we talk about special events.
Special events and beyond.
The world, special events and beyond. I still have to get a better introduction. As you all know, I'm still working on that. But we like to talk about other things other than just special events. We talk about fashion, design, and everything that special events touches and everything that inspires us who are involved with special events. And of course, as always, I have my cohort in crime, Randy Garza. How are you, Randy?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I've seen you a lot this week.
We have. Are you getting tired of me yet?
Never. If I can do 7 days on an island with you, I think I can do it a few times.
We managed.
Right? So, no, we had a good time. Anything special yesterday that you did?
Not for me, but I understand you have something special going tonight.
Oh, I did. So last night was great.
Last night, and then tonight too, don't you?
Yeah, Phoenix Pride did their media launch to talk about the festival that's in October. And obviously myself and my team manage the VIP area for Phoenix Pride, so we're very excited about that. And we'll talk more of that in coming up episodes when we get closer to October. And then tonight we're going to go see Hairspray.
That sounds fun.
Which I'm very excited because my good friend Andrew Leavitt is in the production. You guys may know him as Nina West, but I could not be more excited to do that for today. But we're so excited also for our special guest today.
Indeed.
I have worked with this gentleman quite a few times. We bonded and did some wonderful things together during the pandemic as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do the very exciting part. So our guest today is Dobby D. He is CEO for Call to Auction and co-founder of Inspire Your Hearts Fundraising. He's an amazing, amazing auctioneer, fundraising person for nonprofits. So we're going to heavily talk about that because that's what Dobby does. And so we're so excited, Dobby. Yay. That's my sound effects.
Yay.
Welcome, Dobby. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, David. It's so good to see you. It's been a few moons.
Yes, it has. Well, you've gotten way busy. Obviously, post-pandemic, you jumped right back in. We'll talk about all of that. But we always have everybody, just tell us a little bit about yourself, background, and how you got to the point where you're at now.
Okay. Well, hey there, everyone. My name's Dobby D. I'm an auctioneer, and I love helping nonprofits raise money at fundraising events. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Okay, here we go. I'll do it really fast.
Okay.
So I'm a second generation auctioneer. My dad is an auctioneer. My mom's an auctioneer. My brothers are auctioneers.
Can you tell?
My wife is an auctioneer. Her mom's an auctioneer, and her grandpa was an auctioneer. So I am surrounded by auctioneers.
Wow.
All the way around. So yes, we eat, sleep, and breathe auctions. I got my start in the auto auction business back in, oh my gosh, pre-2000, going to ASU. I never wanted to be an auctioneer.
And Dobby, I saw a video and I should have assumed this, but I didn't know this, but you can do the fast auctioneer talk.
I can. The 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, 85, 100, now.
I had no idea. I shouldn't have not have assumed because I work with a lot of different people who do the fundraising for the nonprofits.
That's amazing.
Do you ever get to do that during events? No, that's a
Sometimes
little too much.
I do.
Okay.
It's good shtick when we get all these hands go up, and I'll start an item like a trip to Hawaii for $1. Who wants it? And then all of the hands go up, and I'm like, all right, friends, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, who's still in? $10. All right, let's go. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100.
Right?
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Call to Auction.
So Call to Auction, we founded Call to Auction in, 2014. Where I came up with the idea of that is I was working with a fundraising auctioneer mentor or mentors of mine, and they're like, Dobby, you need to create something that's just more than Dobby, something that can live on with that. And from that, Call to Auction was birthed. And, I always like to say that auction is action with you in it.
Oh, I like that.
See, there you go.
Somebody write that down.
Trademark Dobby D. Came up with this idea of how to help nonprofits in the Southwest and across the United States have more energetic auctions and fundraisers, bringing in consummate professionals. This is where they live, they eat, they sleep, they breathe. They're experts within that, and then coming at it with a much deeper look at events than just kind of the surface level where a lot of my colleagues and competitors were at, and it's dive into that. And now here we are. Oh my gosh, we're almost celebrating 10 years next year. We've been able to help hundreds of nonprofits. I think we've totaled it up as $165 million raised in that amount of time. Yeah, coast to
That's
coast. It's
awesome.
been great.
And so coast to coast, because you left us in Arizona.
Well, I did, and but I left you for love, though.
Correct.
So
that matters.
Where are you now, Bobby?
I'm on Long Island, New York right now.
Oh,
So I'm 45 minutes from New York City as the train flies. I can get into the city in about an hour, and it's pretty awesome to be able to leave my house, walk a couple blocks, get on the train, and then an hour later pop up at Penn Station or Grand Central and come out and be like, wow, that was a crazy kind of transformation that just happened. I'm in New York City now. So it's, especially for someone that grew up in the sparse desert of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, that's awesome. And yes, you did it for love, and your wife is adorable, and so is the rest of the family. Yeah. So that's acceptable. And the nice thing is, like, I always tell people, we were just talking about it before we started, is that I still pitch Bobby as an auctioneer and fundraising assistance for the nonprofits I work with, simply because it doesn't matter that he's not here. It doesn't mean he's local. You know, there are those great big planes that happen really easily. So it's a good piece of
every day.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the other benefits of working with Bobby. We'll jump right into some of the more generic questions and get into the nitty gritty of the fundraising that we like. So one of the questions I send over always, we start everybody else out, is like, define special events. If someone says, special events, what comes to mind to you?
Oh, they're just so special. Is the special event. In my world, it is the Gala is the special event. The golf tournament is a special event. Anything like that is what comes to mind, especially in kind of my nonprofit fundraising world. I know there's all kinds of other events that are in corporate worlds and whatnot, but right there, that Gala, that golf tournament. Sometimes there's bowling that happens. I've yet to do a pickleball tournament, but I'm open.
It's coming.
For ideas.
It's coming.
It's definitely coming.
Like, everybody's building pickleball. It's so funny. That's awesome, because here at Twigger Time, every event is special, but we still like to ask the question as far as like what comes to mind, so that people know like where that's coming from. What's your favorite thing about the galas and the events that you do?
I love it how a group of community, a group of people can come together and make something amazing happen. Like within fundraising events, it's this community of people, and many people don't know each other, and they're all there for relatively the same reason. But when they put their kind of their hearts and their hands and their heads in together into this event, and they start raising their paddles, and they're raising money, and they're doing the auctions and all that kind of stuff. A large group of people can really, solve a lot of problems in the world. And when that happens, it creates this shared experience in which complete strangers become best friends in a very short amount of time. So that's my favorite thing about events, is that electricity that gets built up into the in the audience of everyone that's there, whether they're working or they're not. But it's a space you never want to leave. And that's how, David, you might be able to echo this, but that's how I know when a gala was good. Nobody wants to leave.
Yeah. They all want to stay.
That's right.
And then I'm standing there trying to tear it down. I'm like, you all need to go home.
do the announcement over the microphone. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out.
One of my favorite songs. And so is there a lesser favorite thing about the galas and the events?
It's when we lose sight of what the importance is. My clients, a lot of times they'll come to us and they'll be like, hey, we want to do this and this and this and this. And then it's all of a sudden the focus goes on something else. And it's like, yeah, but we're really over here. We don't really need to be focusing on this or spending the amount of time.
Stay on point.
Is that a logistic thing, or are you talking about focus from like what the nonprofit is versus like the evening?
It's sometimes there's like we call it the squirrel moment, where all of a sudden something pops up and squirrel. What? And then they all get distracted on one particular thing. Speaking of pickleball, I was working with a nonprofit client. They have a gala coming up in October here on Long Island, and they're like, it would be great if we used our auction paddles were pickleball paddles. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. And all of a sudden, now the conversation went into 30 minutes talking about pickleball paddles. And I'm like, hold.
That's the least of our worries. We have to talk about the live
auction. We have to talk about the paddle raise. We have to talk about all those things. And that's my least favorite thing.
Got it. What I like to also ask people is, and sometimes this kind of confuses some people, but it's one of my favorite questions. What other areas of life inspire / affect or coexist with, let's say, like the fundraisers and the galas and stuff?
Right. Like within my own lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm also a photographer. This is my the photography and videography was my COVID project, because I know, like you, David, you were like, oh crap, what are we gonna do if we can't have events? And had always been taking photos, and then I dove into it, and I'm like, this is really cool, and I love shooting a good wedding. I love a fun wedding. I love a fun corporate event. Being on the other side of the lens, being in that production black uniform and running around snapping photos and whatnot. And then I do a lot of high art photography as well too. I do ocean photography, waves, kind of sunsets and kind of beach lifestyle stuff. That's a bit of the inspiration for me, that I can see and create and feel this beauty that's in the world, and then taking that to events.
I love that.
That is
and I
nice.
love that first part. Is I always think it's great when, like you said, the photography, and then how it relates to like when you're actually like at the event, and you can be as involved or not involved in
wearing
setting
the
up
other
things up.
hat. Yeah,
correct. It's like is this really going to like look good as far as like, does this work if I'm on stage or if I'm on the dance floor, and does lighting need to be changed so people can actually see me, or I need to see the paddles, and that little photography eye would be like a great little piece, because you're like this really isn't going to look better. Why don't we have me up on stage? Or why don't we, something like that? So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's that production, and it's that whole event design that comes with it. And then I love giving photographers that are there, and I kind of give them a little nudge, and I'm like, hey, this is a really good shot. And they're like, oh, great. Thank you.
I love it.
So let's dive into the actual like auctioneer part of it. And I'm going to ask the big question first, because it'll spawn some other areas and things like that. So when we work with fundraising, we work with our auctioneers as the planner and then like the nonprofit person. We always end up to that same spot and that same big question, which is, which should we do first? Do we do the ask first, or do we do the live auction first?
All right. Well, I have the perfect answer for that.
Oh, wow.
Depends. It really depends.
Okay.
Hold on. That's not Bobby.
I told you, Bobby.
That's not an answer.
So in love with that.
That's
box.
not an answer.
Oh
No,
my
it is an
God.
answer.
Yep.
But go ahead.
It is a terrible answer, and everybody gets so frustrated. Like, well, what do you mean depends? Just give me
Because
the
there's not really
answer.
a real answer. Yeah.
And it isn't, because it really does. It's like, like the auction is very active, and it's very exclusive for certain individuals that are there. And if an organization is finding that after their auction, 55, 65, 75% of their audience disappear, then I'm going to make the, give them the advice to put their auction, put the paddle race first, do the fund to need first to capture that attention. But there are other groups that do their live auction, and everyone stays there. And that auction helps to build the electricity, and it builds the motivation and the inspiration, and it builds that energy that's up in the room. And when that's done right and nobody's leaving, then we could do, the paddle raise at the end or kind of in the middle. So it also depends on the auction prizes that organizations have.
exactly.
Like, are they really great?
that.
Are they going to
Prizes.
enhance this experience?
Right.
And create that auction-tainment, or are they going to be kind of boring? And if that's the case, then, we'll flip-flop it around and whatnot.
Yeah, so it's definitely the live auction items, because sometimes they try, whether they're consignment items or they're actual like travel or, things that they have to put in there. But the mindset for everybody that gets stuck on is that, are you worried that if you do the ask first, some people are waiting, they might go look for one of the big live auction items. So they don't want to donate too much to the paddle, because I might spend $5,000, $10,000 on a live auction item. But if you do live auction first, then I already spent $5,000 on an auction item. I'm not going to do the paddle raise now.
Could you elaborate on the difference between the ask and the paddles?
Yes. So for those who don't know, that's a great question. We'll have Bobby do that. So go ahead, Bobby.
So auctions are where you have one item of something. So like this wonderful limited edition Starbucks cup that will auction this off. And whoever the highest bidder that says, I will pay X amount of dollars, is the winner. They hold this. This is they win, and their donation goes to the nonprofit.
Yeah, we call that one the live auction. So live auction, because you'll have a silent auction, which all those ones on the table.
Right, you write your little
live auction. Usually
bids.
the larger items.
Sure.
That's actually where somebody Bobby's place would go there and talk about here's a description of the trip and here's what you get, and that's they kind of build up the price and stuff.
Ah,
So the ask though, go ahead.
Yeah, so then live auction being transactional, there's only one person making the transaction, one person buying the item, and then one organization that's getting the dollars. So that's like transaction.
Gotcha.
Whereas a paddle raise, a fund a need, a cash call, whatever you're going to call it, it comes down to pure philanthropy, and it's an inclusive opportunity where 100% of the audience can bid, or give in this experience. And that's what we love, is getting that engagement, getting that excitement, getting everyone to feel as if they can make a difference at whatever donation level they are. And then that's what it is. It's just pure donations, 100% donations, just who could give 10,000, raise the paddle, so on and so forth.
And we'll go over the amounts and stuff, but that's basically where you're sitting in the audience to say who's going to give $1,000, and people raise their little numbers.
Interesting. I just didn't know the difference.
Yeah. So that's the number. Yeah. And so the big thing is that, do you do both? Most of everybody does both.
Right.
But the big question always is like, where should we place this? Because you don't want people, if someone's like waiting to do like a silent auction item, and also to add on to that question, Bobby, is that when do you close your silent auction? Because if you're waiting like, okay, I'm going to pay like a silent auction item, and then if I don't win that, then I'll go ahead and raise my number.
Right.
And I'll get something over. Rarely is silent auction going to like interfere with like a live auction, because it's not really the same level. Correct.
Right. And I like to have the silent auctions closed first, because it acts like an escrow account. And if someone's bidding in the silent auction and they had like $1,000 tied up into that, then they get to the live auction, they get to the paddle race, and they're like, yeah, I don't know how much I spent in the silent auction. I'm just going to hold off a little bit.
Good point.
Good point. Yeah. And if they know that it's sold, then they're like, oh, okay, this is how much I've spent. And like you said, there's this amount of budget that's left over that I can use in the live auction or in the paddle race or whatever that might be.
How do you feel about the new trend of keeping the live auction open for another 24 hours after the event?
So silent auction, keeping that open. I know there's the back and forth. It's that one word, silent live. But the silent auction, keeping that open, I'm totally cool with it, because a lot of times organizations, their community is much larger than what can fit into that ballroom. And this is a way, especially for like schools, nationwide organizations, they can really spread that kind of that net way out there, and people that wanted to, want to buy something don't have to be in the ballroom on that night. And the gala becomes kind of a feature of like, here, look at all of these great items that we have that are going to close tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So make sure you text it out to your friends and your neighbors. There's some great things that are in here, and, and it helps a good cause. So I like it. Again, the depends answer.
Yeah. I imagine each event takes a life of its own.
Absolutely. Right. Well, and it's is it the first time you're doing this? Is it the 10th time you're doing this?
Right.
And with like the 10th time, who's attending your nonprofit fundraiser, so who's in the audience. If it's a newer one, you don't know who's in the audience. Like people who bought tickets may not be like, I'm going to drop $5,000-$10,000, but I am going to drop like $100 or $200 on a silent auction. And once you get that feel, you kind of know like how to do that, because a lot of things for the staff, the nonprofits don't have huge staffs. Sometimes for these larger ones, then you have like a huge amount of like volunteers who do it. And the question is, again, we'll push this to Bobby, is, people always ask, like, how many silent auctions should we have?
Oh my gosh.
Because that can get out of hand, and you have just like dozens and dozens and dozens, and it's so much work to wrap them and to put them together.
Oh, sure.
And do that whole thing of it. So when they ask that question, Bobby, like, I know I have an answer, but like, what's your answer on that?
This kind of brings me back to that question you asked, like, what's the least favorite? It's like, here, like, how much time are we going to spend talking about this thing that's going to raise you a few thousand? To answer your question, as little as possible. is what if you could have 5 items, 10 items, 25 items, really good curated, designed items that match your audience, then you're going to get a lot of money raised in that. An easy ratio is probably like 25% of what your guest count is, would probably be a good number for groups that do want to have or are accustomed to having those large silent auctions.
Yeah. Because I've had some people say like, we just don't want to do it anymore because it's too much work. And I'm like, my only issue with that is that sometimes it's a decent amount that they raise, and it is work, but all you have to do is like minimize the amount. You don't need like 100 items.
Right.
People come in and like they're sitting around that first hour. If you don't have any kind of raffle, if you don't have anything for them to do besides stand around, you then have to either bombard them with your story and your message about what is going on with the nonprofit. What are you raising money for? Here's our stories. Or you have to give them something to look at and like spend their mony on. Right. They know that's what they're there for.
Something to do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And they always, my other big item is, I'll ask you the question first. What is and it's hard to answer, so I'll have my
He's got his sound effects ready, Bobby. This isn't
There
fair.
you go. It's a test.
He's setting you up.
I'm like, I love it. Let's go. The question is like, what's the biggest, and I won't say mistake, but like the biggest like non-step that you see, whether they're new or maybe like they're not new, they've been doing it for years, mistake that like some nonprofits do for their fundraisers?
Ooh, that's a great question. The looking at the event as a whole experience, and kind of almost looking at it like a 3-act play. Like there's the intro, like here we are, we're there. This is event. This is why we're here. This is the purpose that we're there. And then looking at like what's the meat in the middle? Like we're having a sandwich. What are we giving them? And then a definitive ending is so key. I was at an event the other night and we're done with everything. And it was like, oh, are we done? Oh, I think we're done. Are we done? Okay, we're done. And then it was just kind of like that. The whole room was like built up and all of a sudden there was no definitive ending or kind of
awkward.
No final number, no grand finale. And everyone was just kind of like, okay, bye. And it was
awkward.
Yeah, it kind of felt weird. So I would say looking at it as kind of that full experience and design, what do you want to have? I mean, Dave, that's why I love working with you and your team. You're just so creative of like, here, we can add in these elements and bring this in here and make it happen.
I appreciate that. One thing that I see for that piece is that they have to understand, like, and I drew a little, like, a picture. It's not a dirty picture.
It looks dirty from here.
A little picture for Randy is the same thing. Is like it's like the bell curve for the evening is you have like your entry part, but basically building up like to like that
a crescendo.
Message. Yes, you have your heartstrings moment, as we call it, and people do that and they lose their momentum because they don't do it right. Like your heartstrings moment, they want to play like that video sometimes like firsthand. And like you need it at the right spot in this moment because that's going to make people open up their pocketbooks, which is why people are there.
After the third cocktail, that's when you want it.
Well, that too. Yeah, bar is very important. But losing that momentum as far as that piece is what I see a lot happening and stuff like that. I like a second one is that they fill the evening with too many statistics. And I get that it's part of their message, but they talk about like and like people know why they're there. They want to have a lovely evening. They want to help you raise money.
That's a good point.
And you want to give them some information. I had one that did a decent job, and we're working on the next year. And I'm trying to like reduce like the amount of time they did the statistics because it just took way too long. They lost the complete audience.
You know what happens when I hear statistics,
right? Oh, is that the
or
one?
the crickets?
Sorry. Yeah.
See, Bobby, we have fun here.
The crickets.
I love it. You do.
The crickets. Great. But that is definitely a thing, right? And you've seen that, Bobby. We've run into that.
And I always like to
it's off.
Consult with my clients or any nonprofit out there. It's like cut out the BS, cut out the boring statistics.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
get it out. Get rid of the BS. It's small, short talking points that are impactful. And yes, you need to have a little bit of numbers, but you also need to have that like you said, that heart tug. You got to have that storytelling that's there. So we're affecting both sides of the brain, not just one side.
Right. Exactly. Is there I forgot the question I was going to ask. Still asking the question.
Well, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So he said cut the BS and stuff like that. Right. So that goes in turn with the planner of the event as well. So how close is that relationship? Are you right there from the beginning, Bobby? How does that all work?
Well, that's an excellent question.
Great question.
Because it's one of the things that I love working about Bobby, and we talked about. We're going to bring that up real quick. It's how do you work that relationship, Bobby? Yes, but also to everybody that's out there, because I love to talk about our guests and things like that. Yeah. The one besides just like being an amazing like auctioneer and like fundraiser is Bobby, you spend a lot more time with your clients than other auctioneers that I've worked with. And I'll let you talk about that. But for me, it's so great because the day of, if you walk in as an auctioneer who's maybe like attended like one phone call, you have some things the way you like to see things done. And then like we're running around and we have to change lighting, we have to change production, like these slides are different and it just doesn't get there. And like then they ask a bunch of questions about the charity and stuff like that. So tell us why you like to be a little bit more involved.
Well, and it comes back to really our ethos within this is helping nonprofits to have as impactful event as possible. And it's, yes, raising money at the event's one thing, but it's everything that's around that. And we want to look at the different areas that we can set them up for success. That live auction, like what are the elements within the live auction? There's auction marketing. There's, making sure that you have prepared bidders in the audience. There's, the items, all of those things. And then there's the fun, the need, there's the video and the paddles and the levels and the matching gifts and all of those different things, as well as the revenue generators like the raffles and the champagne games and the mystery boxes and all of those things. It's able to work with clients.
This is a science.
We can look at the whole picture.
So captivated by this topic. I didn't think I would be. I really did. I'm like, they just
well, there's so much more to it.
Because there's so much to it. I'm learning so much.
Yeah, and because it's a thing where you do have to balance the message. You have to balance like logistically how it's going to work, and that's like on our side. And then like Bobby comes in, and it's not just the auction. Like some people come in there, they walk in, they do the auction, they walk out. It's like if you don't know like the story behind the nonprofit or why you're raising money, then you come off as I'm just here and I want your money. You have to be genuine and stuff like that. I also like one of the times for like a very large brunch event here in town that Bobby did. You walk around beforehand. Right? He walks around like in the crowd,
cool,
and just talks to people.
Yeah, that's great.
That. Yes, for sure.
And that gives him some insight as to the crowd too, I would imagine.
Yeah. Do you approach it like, so what if it's your first time with the nonprofit? Like, do you handhold a little bit more? Because then you don't know really who's in the audience. Like if you've done it 3, 4, 5 years, some of the big holders, like you said, and your eyes popped up, Randy, is like, having certain bidders like in the audience. Like if someone's going to donate like $5,000, you start, you have a $5,000 level and where like there's someone's going to be there. And it helps to kind of like to get that momentum and stuff like that. But if it's a brand new group, like how do you kind of like work through that? Is there certain things you like to do?
Yeah, I like to look at their data, what they've had in previous years. If they've done an event before, then, we know it's like, okay, well, here, let's kind of steer this way, or let's try to build some engagement in this way, or try to bring up the numbers in this way. And also talking with their leadership, their board members, major donors, anything like that, and trying to build that rapport. And that's why I'm walking around that room, is to meet these people and get them to, know who I am and build that relationship. Because fundraising, just like events, is all built on relationships. So it's all about, creating that relationship with the donor that's out there that wants to raise their paddle. So it's diving in deep. I love to go and tour different facilities that are out there to really understand that mission. And like you just talked about it before, is a successful auctioneer is authentic within their presentation and their storytelling, and can really speak from the heart, not just this is a really great organization, we should raise some more money for them.
Right. Yeah. You're a coach too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Are there some live auction items that work better than others? Because a lot of people are like, what should we have? What should we do? Things like this. So let's talk about that for sure.
So my favorite live auction item is a food and wine experience presented by a local chef and restaurant. And it's where the chef will come to your house and, do the food and do the wine and do the whole everything at someone's house or your house or wherever. So I love seeing that. I love, like, especially for smaller nonprofits or even like schools or different groups, is to work with the local hardware store and get one of those really cool coolers, those like really expensive ones, like the Yetis or the Canyons, and then talk to every brewery that that's in town and get them to donate a 6-pack, and then all of a sudden you fill this cooler up with all
fantastic.
Beer.
Yeah,
I'm stealing that, Bobby. I'm gonna steal.
He's taking notes. He's taking notes.
Cooler.
And then the last one, I like to call it inobtainium. It's a item you can't find anywhere else.
Wait, what was that? What was that?
Inobtainium. It's like titanium, but it's inobtainium. You can't you can't find it. There's nowhere. It's like you can't get it. It's like having dinner with Jeff Bezos or something like that, and you just happen, Jeff Bezos is like your brother-in-law or something like that, or whatever.
Something that's not out there, because a lot of people can do like the trips. So consignment trips, I don't know if Freddie even knows that. So a lot of people will do it where there's actually, so you have a trip, let's say to like Hawaii, you're staying somewhere and some activities, whatever. And the nonprofits, like either if they have a board member who can donate something, that's great. But if not, on consignment, there is a cost for it. So you have to start the bidding like at that cost,
to cover the cost.
And then you obviously build up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cost you anything if you don't sell it, but it may not be as high as those. And a lot of people have the trips and stuff. So I was trying to think of something. I like the food and beverage experience, the Inoptanium.
Yeah. Well, you remember our friends threw a lovely brunch that they bid on.
What? Oh, they did.
They did.
See, that was great.
That was wonderful.
Yeah,
and
so
you're right.
that
It was something that was at their home. And
for sure. If you had one piece of advice, Bobby, that you could give to nonprofits, whether it's new or it could be both, like they're new or someone who's established, what's that kind of advice that you can give?
I would say find professionals that you like to work with. Life is too short to work with a-holes that are, sure, you pay them a lot of money, but if they don't make that planning process or even the experience, enjoyable, and it's not, I mean, we're supposed to put the fun in fundraising, and a lot of that experience is exuded through the organization and through the vendors and everybody that's there. And that's what I'm seeing is more groups are making investment in high value professionals to help them to make this happen, because they specialize in nonprofits. Where we specialize in events. And when we take their specialty and our specialty and are able to bring them together, then that's where, really the, kind of the top can get blown off of that, because, it's like, hey, we're putting this there. So I would, I'm a huge event professional fan. I am a board member of the ILEA chapter here in New York City, the International Live Events Association.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm always really trying to push that use of a professional, because so many times I don't know where this nonprofit myth came from that they got to try to get everything for free, and get what you pay for. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's exactly right, Bobby.
I appreciate that, Bobby, because it's a big thing for me. What I love when I tell people when they reach out, I was like, we're not really sure if we want to work with someone, and I'm like, what I try and do for the nonprofits is like I take everything off their plate that's not physically or touching the nonprofit. You shouldn't have to worry about production. You shouldn't have to worry about the hotel or the venue. You shouldn't have to worry about food and beverage, timing, who's coming in, who needs what, all of these things you need, how many tables, that whole thing is you should be focusing on who is coming, your internal content, what your goals are and things like that. So the one that I just signed that, Bobby, we talked about a little bit earlier, I was excited about because they've got a small staff and they've done these events and they realized that it just wasn't going to the next step. And it's not that I'm going to come in and be like a magician. It's just I told them that when I was doing my pitch, I said, I'm not going to come in and wave a little magic wand, although I do have one. And it's going to be all better. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of that little work, all of that messy work, and just take that off your plates, and you guys can focus on it. And they've already seen it. What do we do about the venue? We found a venue, we did the contract, we're doing diagramming and production. That's all set. And she's like, this early out, because it's not till later this year. She's like, I can actually focus on the messaging. We're looking at marketing now. We're looking at who's coming. We're looking at
that's huge.
Can we who are we going to come in and have them talk about give their stories and stuff? They can focus on that stuff, which makes a huge difference. And when you see the year over year part, it's amazing. That's been awesome. So Bobby, what's some other our last little tips and tricks that you want to give out to us or talk to us about? Because we didn't really talk about. You're the co-founder of Inspire Your Hearts Fundraising. So talk about that.
And you're award winning.
Yes, all of the above. 2015, I won the World Automobile Auctioneer Championships, and then in 2017 is where my light bulb went off. I was like, wait a minute, I'm selling used cars to used car dealers, or I can help nonprofits.
Wait,
nonprofits.
That's a big leap.
So
that's a big leap.
Yeah. So I ended up making that leap there. But Inspire Hearts Fundraising we're the only boutique fundraising event firm in the nation, maybe even the world, that focuses on paddle raise only events. And I know one of your questions, you were talking about what's the evolution in fundraising events that we're looking at. And out here on the East Coast, we're starting to see a very condensed timeline where the whole event is like 3 hours, like 1 hour cocktails, 1 hour program, and then 1 hour of kind of post networking. And within that very short program time is where we're going to, tug at the heartstrings and tell the story and talk about the impact and all of that, and then make the ask. Like, that's it. Like,
are you seeing bigger numbers? Are you seeing because it's just easier, or what's the motivation?
All of the above. It's a lot. I mean, like you said, people know why they're going there, and they're there to give money. And especially for New Yorkers that have been in the office all day, we do a lot of weeknight events here in the city, and they come in. They're after work, 6:30. Give me a drink, give me some food. I know why I'm here. Okay, take my money, and that's it. They don't need to go through all the raffles and the silent auction and the live auction and all of that. So we're starting to see, more curated events, more highly designed events, and then really all building up to that.
I love hearing that, because that actually started like a few years ago. People were like talking about, because the same people go to a lot of these different events.
Yes.
And some of them are just so long and it takes forever. So people are like, do we have to do a dinner? Can we get away with just appetizers? Can we get away with just desserts? Can we do like a shorter thing? And it just didn't end up taking off out here because people were too scared, and the big ones out here are just too into like we have to have like all of this. I love hearing that, because I honestly think it
can be done in 3 hours.
Easily.
It can be, yeah.
It doesn't have to be this whole big.
Is that one of the biggest differences you see, Bobby, between like the desert Southwest and New York? I mean, they're different environments.
Two things. It's that where everybody has to either be on a Friday or Saturday night in the West Coast. Yeah. East Coast, again, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays are great. They love it because they can get the venue cheaper. They can get everything cheaper.
Right.
And you're not fighting against any other nonprofits. So that's that's number one. Number two, I was just at fundraising day last Friday in New York City, and we were talking about open bar. For some reason in New York, we have, $500, $1,000 tickets. And when somebody pays that much for a ticket, they're going to expect open bar. Whereas it happens a lot in Phoenix and sometimes Orange County, sometimes, different places in the Southwest, that it's always a cash bar. And it's really interesting to see those two differences. Like if we did a cash bar out here on the East Coast, like it'd be mutiny. Like people would get me out of here. They're charging for drinks. And
I don't have a sound effect for that. Oh, wait, hold on.
And something about the West Coasters, they really like to party. And if we find that there's an open bar, we're going to take advantage of that. And it's gonna hurt these, or not hurt. It's going to definitely ding the pocketbook of whoever's footing that bill.
Hosting,
so
sure.
They have a good time. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I am so thankful, Bobby, that you stepped in and want to do this with us. It's an amazing
I learned so much today. I honestly did.
It's a big thing. Obviously, it's a big area. We at Vermont Events, and I love working with nonprofits because, I even take a few of them that are smaller, that some people are like, well, they don't really have a budget to hire me. And I'm like, that's not what it is. Like, I want the message of what they're doing. Like, I'm going to step in and help them, because if I help them grow, then it just grows with them.
Absolutely.
So it's a wonderful thing. And working with someone like Bobby is amazing. I always get excited because then I know the auctioneer isn't going to come in and just be like a whirlwind the day of, which is one of my biggest pet peeves.
That happens.
And it happens. So you're amazing. Are you coming out this way at all? Do we have anybody?
Say that again?
Are you coming out this way?
Oh, coming out?
Yeah.
I was actually just out in Phoenix a week ago. I picked my two sons live in Phoenix with their mom, and I picked them up.
And you didn't call me? You didn't call me?
He came to see his family.
Oh, okay.
I was in and out. I picked up the kids and we went on a 10,000-mile road trip, and then I dropped them off and drove back to New York. So we saw pretty much
10,000 miles.
All the way up to Canada and all the way down the West Coast.
I thought you went to Hawaii or something.
You can't drive. Oh, Randy.
You get on a boat and just keep going.
Right? Round. Well, that's awesome. Well, hopefully I can see you soon, and hopefully we get to work together again as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we can all the information on the YouTube channel and the podcast information will have ways to contact Bobby. You can find him always, and we're very, very thankful that you came with us, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bobby.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, both of us. I do have one little plug. As you're doing event-based podcasts, my wife and I, we just debuted our own podcast. It's called Heart of the Gala.
Oh, exciting.
And we've done episodes on silent auction, how many items. We've talked about how to find an auctioneer. We've talked about what are the trends and all those different things. And season 1's done, and now season 2's coming up. So we've got some great stuff.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
And David, when I'm in town next time, we're going to get together, you and me, and it's going to be a kind of Joe Rogan style, where it's going to be a couple hours of just going through it all.
Nice.
Can I be there too, Bobby?
I don't know.
Okay, you can come too.
But we'll talk later, Bobby. Or hold on.
And we'll have that rosé champagne around, right?
Exactly.
That's what we do.
No, I would love that. So make sure you send me that information so I can put it out there so everybody can follow that as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Twigger Time. As always, every event is special, so make those events count. Randy, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Right back at you. Bobby, thank you. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right.